Welcome to DCP Webinars. I'm Ashok Dewangan, mentor from DCP. The idea behind conducting this webinars is to make our participant aware about the photographic skills from the distance, and let this make the current time productive for our photographic skills learning. The topic for today's session is getting started with Adobe Camera Raw. And in upcoming session, we will put more mentors here, and they'll take you to the photographic journey they spent of years, and they'll share their experiences in upcoming webinars. So please keep eyes on the upcoming events of the webinar. Regarding Adobe Camera Raw, Adobe Camera Raw is a powerful plugin of Adobe Photoshop. Yes, it is a plugin, and you cannot install it as such because it is the plugin of Photoshop. So there are different image editing applications of Adobe software. The first one is Photoshop. Everyone knows about this. The second one is Lightroom. And the third is Bridge. Bridge is basically image handling or image management application of Adobe. However, Photoshop and Lightrooms are the application. The Camera Raw, as I said, is a plugin for the Photoshop. So these two are, exchange each other. When you open any raw file, it will first cycle through Adobe Camera Raw, and then it goes to Photoshop. So let us jump in the Adobe Camera Raw. So this is the image which I shot in Bandardara, and this image, you can see this is a raw image, screenshot of raw image, and after Adobe Camera Raw processing, it looks like this. Okay, so let us jump to the Adobe Camera Raw. Hope you hear my sound perfectly. If you're not hearing my sound, please let us know in chat window. Okay, so let us jump into Adobe Camera Raw. So this is the Adobe Camera Raw, and this is the interface of Adobe Camera Raw. When I shot my images, or when I'm in field, I make sure that when I photograph, I always photograph with edit in mind. What does it mean? It does mean that my highlights should be well protected. Also, my the shadows or the blacks should not be underexposed. So when I shot, I always keep the editing in mind, so that later on when I process the images using the Adobe Camera Raw and Photoshop, I can process this easily. Second thing, the raw. This is the raw image. I always shoot in raw because it is having more details than JPEG. JPEG is 8-bit system. However, raw gives you freedom of 12-bit or 14-bit. So whenever you open your Adobe Camera Raw, 2-3 things you should do in the Adobe Camera Raw. First thing, make sure the histogram above which you are seeing in the screen, the warning clipping should be on. This is a warning clipping. I'll just show you how it works. Suppose my image is quite underexposed. I have just off my clipping. Suppose your image is quite underexposed, and if you switch on or activate the clipping on, can you see the blue patches you are seeing here is showing that these are my underexposed area. Similarly, for the overexposed area, this will show with the red patches. So red patches are the area which are, shows you or represent the highlight part. So always make sure that you should clip these warnings. Okay, I'll make this default. One more thing is, like, we should always process in 16-bit. The default is in Adobe Camera Raw, default is 8-bit. So whenever you open Adobe Camera Raw, it's one-time exercise. Just click the bottom and you will see the depth. The depth here, currently I have changed it to 16-bit. By default, it's 8-bit. So make sure that you should change it to 16-bit. Okay. These two things you should, do in your Adobe Camera Raw. One more thing is, whenever you initiate the processing, I always recommend to use a calibrated monitor, because it will give you, perfect colors, perfect brightness. If you don't have calibrated monitor, you can use laptop, but the problem with laptop is the screen angle. Whenever you change the screen angle, your image visualization would be different. What happens when you tilted it to more angle more than 90 degree, the brightness, the contrast would be changed. So that is the reason you should fix the angle. How you do that? Download any good landscape image from any of the famous photographer, and you can do it as a reference image and fix the angle where you see the landscape perfectly. So whenever you and mark this angle, and whenever you start the processing, you fix this angle and you then you initiate the processing. Another thing is, if you processing in laptop, do not change the place. Ambient light changes the brightness and the contrast and the colors also. So make sure that you fix your position where you are processing your image, and then you start processing. So this image I have shot in Bhandardara last year. So whenever you start processing, one more thing is, like, don't follow any particular workflow. Every image would be having a different workflow based on the lighting condition, based on the camera settings. So it's not universal truth that you should follow a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 workflow. Every image would be having a different workflow. Another thing is, whenever you start processing, first watch the image. First see the image, what you are seeing, what needs to be done in this image. So based on the years of experience, I can visualize this image, and I can see that whatever I shot during the photo shoot, it's my camera has captured it differently. The Adobe Camera gives me different result. So here I should enhance the details in the sky. That is the first part. Also, I need to increase the exposure. Third thing is, what should I do? I need to open up my shadows, because you are seeing the histogram. Histogram here is towards the left hand sides. What does it mean? It does mean that my shadows are quite underexposed. Your image is quite underexposed. I don't have any highlights towards the right hand side. So let us before initiating the processing, let us understand these terminologies, because what happened, as a photographer, we always do processing, and we do not know technically what is the difference between the brightness and exposure, what is the difference between the vibrance and saturation, what is shadows, what is highlights. So let us first understand this, and I request you all that please make a notebook for the processing. Because what happens, if you learn this processing at one time, later on you will forget until you practice it. And make a practice that you should process at least 2 to 3 images per week. so that you should not forget the the workflow. You should not forget the the different applications, how you process the images. So my recommendation is make a notebook from today onwards. If you do not have notebook, please make a notebook for the post processing. So let us understand what is exposure, highlights, shadows, and what is histogram, because these are the basic things we should learn. So let us jump to slide again. This is a typical histogram. Before that, let me just check my chat window. If are you hearing the sounds or not? If you are hearing my sound, okay, just give me thumbs up. Okay, that's great. Thanks. Yeah. So this is the typical histogram. Here you can see typical histogram of any image. What it says. Don't it's not a difficult subject. It's very easy to understand what the histogram is. Let us understand it. It's nothing but a simple graph of x-axis and y-axis. X-axis is the number of pixels and the y-axis is your tonal ranges. Just think, you have a image. Divide brightness of red color into 256 values. Divide the red color in 256 values. So what you will get, some pixels you will be having like 1 tonal range, 2 tonal range, and the images which are having 255 value, this will be your white. So in histogram, x-axis is the number of pixels and y-axis is the tonal range. X is your black, 255 is your white. This does mean that there are total 256 tonal ranges. So including 0, it is 256. Okay. So make this understand. The 0 is black, 255 is white. 0 is black, 255 is white. Okay. When I increase from 0 to 255, my images ranges from black to gray and then to white. So definition wise, histogram can tell you whether or not your image has been properly exposed, whether the lighting is harsh or flat, and what adjustment will work best. And then another thing, whenever you are in field, do not rely upon your camera screen. Do not rely upon camera screen, but you should rely on the histogram. What happens if you are in a sunshine and you are in Ranthambore or any of the park or any of the landscape? If light is very high, then you will see the screen differently, and if you are in dark place, you will see the screen differently. So screen may alter your result and you will change the settings based on the screen value. Other than that, you should believe on histogram and make sure that your tonal ranges should be in between 0 to 255. Sometimes it happens that there are various lighting conditions. Suppose you are shooting a landscape. So what is happening, if you are shooting like a sunrise or sunset, then you will see the highlights are more. In that case, if tripod is allowed, you can do 2-3 different exposure, and then after shooting, you process them and do exposure bracketing and or merge all the exposures. Okay, so make sure that whenever you shoot, all the values between the 0 to 255. Okay, each pixel is in an image has a color which has been produced by some combination of primary colors. What are those? Red, green, and blue. And each of these colors can have a brightness value ranging from 0 to 255, as I said. And for a digital image, the bit depth is 8. So 2 to the power 8 is a 256. So in JPEG, which gives you value of total 256 tonal ranges. Now, this is the two different kind of histogram. The left hand side is earlier histogram which Ansel Adams uses, which was a 10 zone histogram system, where all the the tonal ranges is divided into 10 different sections. But right now what we are using in current camera, current applications, different software is a 5 zone system histogram, where all your tonal ranges would be in 5 different bands. So again, let's understand this. As I said, 0 is black, white is 255. In between black and white, there are midtones. Okay, midtones is 256 divided by 2 is 128. So if I am seeing that my tonal value is 128, it does mean that my image is a gray color, or I can say the RGB values are same, and it gives me a midtones. Between the midtones and blacks, shadows comes, okay? And between midtones and white, highlights come. So let us, quickly remember this. So my histogram, it starts from black, shadows, midtones, highlights, white. Black, shadows, midtones, highlights, and white. You should remember this, in a way that at night 2 o'clock, if I wake up you and say, ask you what the histogram is, so you should say that black, shadows, midtones, highlights, and white. So all the processing of image based on these only. Once you understand this, then processing is very easy. Okay. This is a typical image of like a field where can you see my highlights are already blown. The sky. That is the reason. Can you see here? It is already blown and my histogram is towards the touching the boundaries, touching the right hand side. So ideally I should not shot like this. I should underexpose here and then I should. Okay. So see, I have the space here. So what I can do, I can underexpose it by reducing the aperture, or I can, the f value I can increase. Okay, or sorry, the shutter speed I can increase. Okay, so I can say for this histogram, it is properly exposed histogram. My all the tonal ranges in between the blacks and white. This is an underexposed image where my tonal ranges towards the left hand side. Okay, and this is a overexposed image. So again, I'm repeating this because it's the heart of the processing. Blacks, shadows, midtones, highlights, and white. If I'm saying that you should, open up the shadows, what does it mean? Open up shadows means you should increase the shadows towards the right hand side so that your underexposed image goes towards the midtones or towards the highlights. Okay, hope you understand this histogram, and then we will start the processing. And before start the processing, let us understand the definition, because as a photographer, as a processor, we should always remember that we always confuse between terminologies. What is the difference between vibrance and saturation? What is the difference between brightness and exposure? So let us understand this. So brightness traditionally is the simple brighten up the entire image from shadows to highlights. Okay. Traditionally, brightness simply brighten the entire image from shadows to highlights. So if I am increasing brightness, I am shifting the whole tonal range from left to right. Okay. If I am increasing the brightness, I am shifting my tonal range from left to right. Okay. Hope you understand this. So hope my audio is okay. Now comes to contrast. Contrast is defined as the separation between the darkest and brightest area of image. So if I am increasing the contrast, what it does, it increases the separation between the dark tones and the brighter tone, making the shadows darker and highlights brighter. So let us understand this through histogram. Okay. Suppose this is my histogram. Okay. When I increase the contrast, what I'm doing, I'm shifting this tonal range from right to left, and these tonal range from left to right. So I'm increasing a gap between the tonal range. Just do it as a homework. You just increase the contrast and see how histogram changes. So brightness is the shifting of the whole tonal range from left to right. Contrast is when I increase the contrast, I'm making my shadows to darker and highlights to brighter. Okay. Sharpness is also a kind of a contrast only, but it works on the edges. So when I am increasing the contrast, it works on edges only. You have a landscape image, or you have a tiger image, or you have a portrait. So suppose you are capturing a portrait and you want to increase the sharpness. Sharpness would only be increased, and contrast would only be increased on the edges. It means the ear part, eyes, eyebrows, nose, and things, not in the cheek part. Okay. So sharpness is defined as an edge contrast, that is the contrast along with edge in an image. When we increase the sharpness, we increase the contrast only near edges in the image and leaving the smooth area image as such. So as I told you that when I shoot portrait, the sharpness should be only on the eyes and only the lines. There are another tools which come in the Adobe Camera Raw or Lightroom is clarity, which is added I think 2-3 years back. So clarity is nothing but mid-tone contrast. So in histogram, we see the mid-tones are the mid part. So when I increase the clarity, it will not change my highlights and shadows. It will only change the mid-tones, contrast of mid-tone. So when I increase the clarity, it is contrast only, but it is the only on the mid-tones. So can you see contrast work, all three, all different places, but differently. So as such, contrast is making the shadows darker, highlights brighter. Sharpness is the edge contrast. Clarity is the mid-tone contrast. Saturation. So what is the difference between vibrance and saturation? Saturation is contrast, but rather than increasing or decreasing the highlights or shadows, we increase the separation between the colors. When we increase the saturation, it uniformly bump up the intensity of the colors. Okay. So when I increase the saturation, it enhance or increase the intensity of all the colors. However, what is vibrance? So vibrance is a very clever tool. So vibrance is very clever tool. What it does, it is very smart tool, which increases the intensity of more muted colors. More muted colors, what does it mean? The section or the pixels which are not well saturated, it touches only those pixels only, and leaving the already well saturated colors as such. So it's sort of a kind of a fill light, but colors. Vibrance also prevents the skin tones from becoming overly saturated or unnatural. Okay, so understand this. Saturation is uniformly bump up the intensity of all the colors. However, vibrance is acting on the muted colors and leaving already well saturated color as such. Then another dehaze tools come, which is dehaze. Dehaze is decrease the haze from the atmosphere. You are shooting in Bharatpur, and if you want to decrease the haze, you can just plug into decrease the dehaze. That's it. Exposure. Just a moment. Okay. Now come to exposure. So what is the exposure? Exposure is majorly increasing or decreasing of the whites and highlights. So it works on the whites and highlights. Understood this? Okay. Let us, start processing in Adobe Camera Raw. I personally use Adobe Camera Raw and Photoshop process my image. And I rarely use Lightroom. It's just a personal preference. So Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw are almost similar, or you can say brothers, where you can see the similar slides here. Lightroom is advanced, and you can manage the the files and images. You can also process images, batch process smoothly in the Lightroom. However, you can do batch processing in Adobe Camera Raw also. Okay. So as I said, when I start my processing, first I visualize what should I do here. So first thing is I need to increase my shadows. I need to give details in my sky part, and I can do some dodging in this, the foreground. There are two things which comes in when you process the image. One is dodging and burning. So dodging is increasing, you can say, brightness of particular part, and burning is decreasing the brightness. That's it. So whenever I start processing, let us understand this first. This is the layout or the interface of the Adobe Camera Raw. The first thing is your zoom button. So it's very simple: zoom in or zoom out. Okay, you can right click and go to fit in view. And the shortcut key is Command 0 for the Mac or Control 0 for Windows. Okay, if you want to give fit in view. After that, hand tools comes. Whenever you zoom in here, somewhere here like this, then hand tools you can use. The shortcut key is space bar, and you can move the image. Okay, right click and fit in view. To zoom in, the shortcut key is Command and plus, or Control and plus, and to zoom out is Command minus, or Command 0 or Control 0 is for the fit in view. Okay. After that, white balance pen is there. After that, targeted adjustment is there. Cropping and straightening is there. After that, transform tool comes, and then spot removal comes. So we will do it, and we learn it how we can use this. After that, local area adjustment or local adjustments comes. Okay. And this right hand side panel, which you are seeing in currently and in the application, is your basic panel. The first tab is your basic panel. It does mean that whenever I'm increasing the exposure, it will work on all the pixels, all area of my image. So whenever I start processing, first I see, is my composition better? No. Suppose my composition not better, I need to crop it. So first what I'll do, I can crop the image or straighten the image. That is the first thing. Or you can do it also in Photoshop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6th number tab is your lens correction tool. That is the first thing you should do in your processing. Remove chromatic aberration. You should always and always remove chromatic aberration. What is chromatic aberration? Let us understand this. I'll zoom it to around 1600%, or let's say, yeah, I think this is okay. Can you see, this is the edge. Chromatic aberration is the lens defects, which is, gives purple or green fringes on your edges. So when I click on remove chromatic aberration, so with the algorithm of the Photoshop or Lightroom, it removes the green and purple fringes. If you see it is not removing, go to manual, and then you can remove it manually. Okay, green and purple. So that is the first thing. Second thing, I'll make it fit in view. Enable profile correction. What it does two things. This shot I have made with Tokina 1116, and though it is a good lens, but it gives you distortion because it is a wide angle lens. So that is the reason you will see some distortion. So it is based on your taste whether you want to remove the distortion or not. Whenever I use fisheye lens, I generally do not do distortion correction. Why? Because I just give you artistic look of image. Suppose I'm shooting in Humpy, I generally use fisheye lens. So in that time, I use I do not use this correction of the distortion. Okay. So for this, I'll do the distortion correction here just to show you. Okay. It will give you default the lens which you are using. Suppose your lens is not appearing here, you can change it manually. Okay. And you can change the distortion from here also. Then vignettes comes. So vignettes are the lens defects, which is right now we are using to give an artistic look or to put viewer attention in particular area of image. So vignettes are basically your lens defect, nothing. So you can increase or decrease the vignettes. Since this is a wide angle, that is the reason you will see some shadows on the corners. Okay, that is the first thing I do when I start processing. After that, I visualize the image, as I said. So shadows needs to be open, exposure बढ़ाएंगे हम, and then we details will pull out. Also, we will remove this unwanted things from the image. Okay. You can straighten here, crop here, based on your composition. Okay. So for here, once I correct the lens correction, I'll do the white balance correction. There are 2-3 different tools of the white balance, and you can correct the white balance. The tool here is on 3rd number, which is a white balance tool. The shortcut key is I, simple I. Okay. Click on here and just look at the RGB values. Hover over your image. Okay. Can you see RGB value is changing? So each pixel is having different RGB value. When I find my RGB value near to around plus minus 20 or 10 and near to like 128 or like between, do not go to extreme like 20 or like 255 or 250. So when I hover an image, I just find the gray point. So this pen, what it does, it finds the will define the gray pixel or find the pixels, gray pixels, and then we click it, left click. Okay. So suppose I am finding the values are 66, 64, 61. Though it is quite lower side, but that's fine for just for demonstration purpose. Just check the value of temperature and tint. Whenever I click, my temperature and tint will change. This is actually balancing your whites. I shot in normally auto white balance because I know later on in processing I can change the white balance. It is not always 100% compulsory that you should change the white balance. Why? Suppose I'm shooting a morning landscape. I want to give a mood of a morning. So I can increase my temperature to give a morning look or a evening look. So it is not compulsory that you should change the white balance here. Okay. So let's find the gray point here. Okay. So ideally I should find a value which is RGB value are close to each other and near to like between 100 and 200. So 66, 62, 56, that is fine. Just see the value of temperature and tint. Okay. Currently it's 6000 plus 6. So I'm clicking here. 1, 2, 3. Yes. Can you see my temperature and tint has been changed and it is corrected my white balance. That is the first method of correcting the white balance. Now to second method. Second method is very easy. Go to white balance and click on the auto. The second method. Third method of correcting white balance is increase your vibrance to 100%. Okay. And increase the saturation towards the high side around 50. Okay. And just see the image. Here I'm seeing the blue cast in my image. So manually I'll increase the temperatures whenever I see the no blue cast here, somewhere here. So this way you can also correct the white balance. But make sure that you should change the vibrance and saturation to 0 or by default what is there. Okay. So ideally you should use this pen to correct the white balance. After that you have a color sampler tool. Suppose you are confused that which sample I should take. So this is the color sampler tool by which you can pick up the total 9 samples. Click here and just give click from the left, click on mouse 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and from these readings you see which RGB value are near to each other. So suppose I am finding somewhere here like 120 or 120. I'll pick the number 1 and go to white balance, pick the number 1 and click here. Okay, and once you total 9 samples you can take. If you click more samples, it will give you warning. Can you see the maximum number of color sampler is 9? Okay, so this way you can correct the white balance. Now clear the samples. Okay, after that what you can do, I'll increase the exposure a little bit here. Okay, contrast I will not touch here, but to demonstration purpose I can touch here. I generally use contrast in Photoshop, but you can do it here. Definitely I'll decrease the highlights. In histogram, where was the highlights? Towards the right hand side. So these are the area where I want to decrease the highlight so that the details from the sky or clouds comes. Okay, can you see how change it is made in my image? It has come out, some details are now coming. Whites shadows I'll definitely open a little bit. I'll decrease the exposure a little bit. Okay, whites I will little bit decrease, and blacks I'll open it. Okay, so manually you can judge the image. Also you can press Alt or Option key in these sliders other than the contrast. So once you press the Alt key and when you click towards the right hand side or left hand side, it will represent the patches. So this is just for demonstration purpose. Whether or not, if you see the patches, don't move, place the slider to that point. Okay, like for highlights. So highlights are well protected. That is the reason you will not seeing the patches. Shadows are also. Can you see when I decrease the shadows, I can see this blue, or when I'm pressing the Alt, it is giving a representation of those area. White also, it will work on the whites. Can you see? So this way you can also judge the image where I should stop my sliders, and it's also work on the blacks. Texture I generally not touch. What it does, it just enhances the the texture of the foreground, or you can say on the image. Clarity we already learned. It work on the midtones. Mid-tone contrast is called clarity. Dehaze, atmospheric haze if it is there, or if you want to put haze in your image, then you can use this dehaze slider. Do not do it over, because it gives you artifacts or give artificial look in your image. It also changes your RGB value or the colors. That is the reason dehaze you should not go beyond 10 or something. Okay. Vibrance, saturation, yes, I'll increase the vibrance a little bit here. I'll increase the exposure a little bit. Okay, and saturation. So this is the before and after. You are seeing the how beautifully this Adobe Camera Raw gives enhancement in my image. Okay, so this is the button or the mode where you can switch between the before and after. It will cycle through different before and after. So this is the after image. Okay, after that vibrance comes. Okay, go to next, which is a tone curve. So this is similar to the Photoshop curve which you are seeing. This is typical histogram, and if you go to the point and touch any of the point and increase, it will increase or decrease the tonal values. One more thing, just I forget to tell you. In histogram also you can put your cursor here and you can change the value. So I am pressing my cursor towards the blacks, so it will changing my. Can you see the blacks here? Midtones. It will change the exposure. Okay. Also for the highlights, can you see my highlights is changing. After that, I'll go to sharpness. So this is the sharpness panel where increase the sharpness. So how it works? It has a masking, very beautiful, slider here. What it does, it masks the area, it represents the area where you do not want the sharpness. As per the definition, what we learned, sharpness works only on the edges. So I want my sharpness only on the edges. So I press the Alt or Option key and drag it to right hand side. I want sharpness to be affected only on the white part. So this is white and black is just representing where my sharpness would work. So white are the area where my sharpness would work, and black are the area where my sharpness would not work. So I'll leave it somewhere here based on the image. You can put it here, and then you can increase the sharpness. Okay, can you see? Okay, and the radius and details you can play with this and check if your sharpness is okay or not. After that, HSL tool comes. So this is nothing but different color channels. I want to have a blue color in my sky. So it has a 3 different tab: hue, saturation, and luminance. HSL. H is your hue. Any purest form of any color is called hue. Saturation, we already learned, and your luminance. Luminance is nothing but brightness. So brightness of any of these color would affect when I drag my slider. Saturation. So suppose I'm put more blue on my sky. Whenever I shot this image in Bandardara, that time image was towards the sky was slightly bluish. So I'll increase the saturation to blue. Okay, and also I'll increase the green here. So green is a combination of yellow and pure green. So I'll increase the yellow and greens also. Also, I'll increase the luminance here. Okay, which is the brightness. I'll decrease some blues. Can you see how it is changing? So somewhere here it is. Okay, this is your HSL panel. Do not touch the hue because it will alter your colors. After that, your split toning comes. What is that? Let us understand this. It is nothing but it divides the tones of highlights and the shadows in 2 different parts, and it works on the colors. If I give a particular mood in my image, suppose I'm shooting in morning and I give a morning feel, I'll just place the slider towards the yellow and increase the saturation. Can you see? It gives me a different mood in my image. Also, whenever you change the highlights, change the tones here, you can also do it for the shadows. This is the lens correction, and after that, this is the effects or the effects. Effects has 2 different parts. One is your grain, and another is the vignettes. So grain, no one wants to have grain in the image. If you want to give effects, you can do it, but everyone wants to decrease the noise, reduce the noise. So do not touch the slider. You can use this vignettes tool. Can you see? It gives darkness on my side. I want to put more focus on here. Okay, this is the different sliders for the vignettes, like roundness, the feather should be high. There should not be clear cut demarcation here. That is these sliders gives. Okay, so these are different sliders which can be used. After that, camera calibration comes. Ideally, you should not touch this, and the other presets comes. Okay. One more thing, when I say about the HSL panel, there are another thing which is here, which is a targeted adjustment tool. So what it does, if you long press here, it gives you saturation, luminance, and hue. If I'm clicking on saturation and put it here, I drag towards the right hand side and left hand side. Can you see the sliders? It can change the values. Okay. Suppose I'm clicking on the luminance, so it will give the luminance. It will change my luminance of particular color. I want to increase the luminance here, so I just drag it towards. Can you see? It is only affecting on this part. So this is the almost 80% work finish here. There are another tools here which is called one is your dust removal tool or spot removal tool. If your camera has a particular sensor has a dust, you can remove from here. What you need to do, just click on visualize spot and then increase the slide to 100% and just click on the spots where you are seeing the spots. So, and it will heal, or you can clone it. Okay, so it will clone it from the another area, and then it can be healed. Okay, so this is the thing. And then after that, some adjustment or local adjustment comes. So whenever you click these three slider, one is your brush, another is your graduated filter, and third one is your radial filter. How it works? So let's, because we are running short of time, so we'll just do this and quickly, finish it. Okay. So suppose I want to have more lights on this area. So I'll click on the brush, and then these sliders comes. These are the local slider. Make sure that left click and reset the local correction, and then you increase the exposure and increase the shadows here, and just hover over this. So it has, work on these part only. Also it has the option of mask and the range mask. So one homework or assignment is, please explore these sliders and let me know in WhatsApp group. Okay, once my image is processed, then I save my image. So Adobe Camera Raw gives you, an option to save the image. The left bottom is your save image. So go here, and this is the the location, and then your space should make sure that it should be Adobe RGB. Depth, since you are saving in JPEG, so it should be 8 bits. And then you can resize the image, and then you click the save button. Okay, so let us see before and after. So we have processed this image from this to this within like 5-10 minutes, or within 5 minutes you can do this processing once you understand the histogram, once you learn these sliders. So Adobe Camera Raw I generally use almost 80 to 85%, and for the signature and saving I use Photoshop. So hope you understand the concept of the the Adobe Camera Raw and process your images. One assignment, two assignments. One I have already given you. Second assignment is that I'll share this raw file to you. You use these, this particular raw file and process this and post the JPEG, final JPEG image in the WhatsApp group. Okay, so let's start the chat session. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so in chat, let us see the questions here. How to remove unwanted object from the capture? Yes, I forget to do that. Let us do that. Okay, so this is your before and after. And okay, so I have already shown you the spot removal tool. So you can use the spot removal tool here to remove the unwanted object. I want to remove these stones or this stain. So go to spot removal, and then make sure that the feather is around 80, opacity is about 100%, and size as per your choice, and just place the mark on this. Okay, so what it does, it take the from the pixels from here and replace it. For here also, for these pixels also, I'll do like this. Okay, for here also I'll do like this. So can you see it has removed the unwanted object from the area? Okay, and just press and make sure that you should not click on the done. You open the image as an image or as an object in Adobe Photoshop. Okay, so the question is how to remove the grains from the Prakash Goyar has a question, how to remove the grains or the yes, Adobe Camera Raw you can do the remove the noise or grain. Here in sharpness slider you will see the noise reduction. So as you increase the slider, you will remove the you will be able to remove the noise. So there are two kinds of noise. One is your color noise, another one is your luminance noise. So you can remove both from these sliders. Saurabh has another question. So basically Adobe Camera Raw is the same as Lightroom is functionally. I'm finding all the, yes, you are very right, Saurabh. It is the same things. I can say Lightroom is a younger brother, or sorry, the bigger brother of the Adobe Camera Raw. It has more options of handling with the different file management system. So yes, it is the same. Rajesh has asked how much percent of image cropping is considered good. It is very much subjective. If you are posting in Facebook, yes, you can crop it up to like 40%. But if you are giving for the print, for the but for the and for the exhibition, you should not crop too much. Ideally, 10% or 20% is fine. Don't do that because you have a limited pixels. And as per the Adobe or Photoshop algorithm, it will put up the pixels in the image. That is the reason do not crop it. So that is the reason the first thing which I said you early in session, that photograph the image with edit in mind. Okay, so if you want to crop the image, you just visualize that what should be my frame, and then you go closer to the subject or zoom it, and then you short, so that you should not crop it much. How do we create presets, apply correction? That's very good question, Shubhankar. What you can do, you just go here or go here and then save the settings. Once you save the settings, this is my global correction or the basic panel. Go here, can you see? And then save the settings. These settings should be saved, and when you open any image, load the setting. But make sure that your all the lighting condition and the camera settings should be same. Next question is Viral Thakkar. When we press Alt slider, we get either red patches or blue patches. Red means highlights and blue means shadows. Yes, we are very right. Realme XM. So once done, has straight away rather than open image in Photoshop. Yes, whenever you open your raw file, it will first cycle through the Adobe Camera Raw. Then when I press open object or open image, it will open in Photoshop. You can press the Alt or Shift key and then press this open as an object or open as an image. Okay. Arjit Das, noise reduction. What is difference between the colors and luminance noise? Yes. So the noise that comes from your sensor and from if you are shooting in dark places, your some hot pixels generates if you expose for a long time. So it comes from your sensor. Amrita Ramesh, is it possible to remove the lens flare in photography? Yes, you can do it in Photoshop. You can easily do it in Photoshop. What is the good PC or laptop configure required to run the application? So ideally you should have at least 8 GB RAM to have this processing. So 8 GB RAM is required, and your the monitor should be calibrated, as I said. Then Bhakt Shankar is asking, is it possible to resize image in Cameraraw? Yes. Why can't you resize your image? Two things. One is your cropping, another is your saving. So when you click on the save option, okay. So when you click on the save option, it will give you freedom to resize to fit. Like for Facebook, I generally use 2048 pixels for 72 ppi or resolution. Okay. How much Adobe 2020 costs? Out of the subject, but the right now it is a monthly applicable fee. So around 800 rupees per month is there, which comes with 3 different packages. One is Lightroom, Adobe Photoshop, and the Adobe Camera Raw. Adobe Camera Raw, you can definitely get it from free download. Can you import multiple images at a time? Yes, Adobe Camera Raw gives you freedom to import multiple images. Yes, I'll just show you. So I'll quickly open my folder, one of my folders, okay, and I'll show you how you can do that. So what you can do, just right click on the images and open. If it is a raw, then it will directly open in the Adobe Camera Raw. Better you go in Bridge and then you open. So Bridge gives you option to right click and then open in as a Bridge. Okay. Can Nikon Capture NX software do these action? Yes. This is only what I told is the Photoshop, Lightroom, and Camera Raw. Yes, Nikon Capture or Canon DPP having the same sliders. Whenever you process image, application really doesn't matter much. It is your understanding. It is your understanding of histogram, and it is your understanding of the photography, how you process the image. So once you have all the learning of the Adobe Bridge, then you can apply this knowledge in any of the software. So yes, you can do that. What exactly is Bridge? So Bridge is nothing but an image management application, Saurabh, and you can handle, you can make folder, you can give star rating to images. So generally what I do whenever I come from shooting, I give star rating to my image, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 5 star. And when I upload this image in my hard disk, then when I open my Bridge, all stars comes. So I'll first process the 5-star rating image, and then 4-star, 3-star. Also, it gives you, select or filter. You can filter the images based on your camera settings, was based on your aperture, based on your the shutter speed. Is it possible to stack images in Camera Raw? Yes, it is very much possible to stack images in Camera Raw itself. What you need to do, open the 3-4 images here. So the film strip would come. After that, what you need to do, there is an option here, like lines you are seeing, the same line would come, and then you can stack the images. There are 2 options it comes. One is your exposure blending, and another is panorama. So you can stitch the images in the Adobe Camera Raw also. So it gives you that freedom. Then what are the settings in camera to reduce to minimum? I'm not getting your question, Mandar. Okay. Another questions I'll take. In Prakash Gore's in wildlife photography, it's good to have a histogram peak in the midpoint. So there is no universal truth, or universal, settings, or universal, graph for histogram. Just make sure that you should not touch the boundaries. Your histogram should not touch the boundaries. That's it. Or kuch jarat nahi. Yes. Then questions. Saturation is bumping colors uniformly. How saturation is black and white colors? Ashish Gore. How to remove unwanted? You spoke about the removing unwanted item. Okay, I've already showed you how to remove frame. I already answered. So since there's a limit of the time, so if you have more questions, then please ask in WhatsApp group. 2-3 more questions I can take right now. Is there any Adobe Photoshop Lightroom Bridge course program? Yes, DCP has various the classroom workshop where you will learn the advanced or the basics of the image processing using Adobe Camera Raw and Photoshop. It is 1-day workshop. We can also do it for 2 days, where you can learn from opening the image till how to put signature in your image, how to put save the image for the different forum like Instagram or the Facebook. So one session would be coming from DCP is in month of May and June. So once this lockdown period over, then we can open these sessions. Would appreciate to session how to change the background of image in Photoshop. Boss, if you are a photographer and if you are a good wildlife or landscape photographer, ideally you should not change the background. Okay. We are not manipulating the image, we should process the image. So there is a clear-cut demarcation between these 2 things. You can do it definitely in Photoshop. So in Adobe Camera Raw, there's no option to remove or change the background, but in Photoshop, yes, you can do that. Please share PPT. Yes, we can do that. What is the advantage of use Camera Raw over Lightroom? As such, nothing, Nandan. I can say it is the same sliders which are there in the Lightroom. You can handle individual images at a time, and also you can play with multiple images here. So thank you very much participants, and allowing and giving time to learn this tool. Just 2-3 things. First thing is make notes of your the learnings. Second thing, I'll share you the raw file of same image. Please process with these learnings which you get today, and more seminars would be coming from our side, from DCP would be coming with more seminars. So please attend those seminars, and those seminars would be either free or with a nominal cost. The last thing, as a photographic community, members, please stay at home and stay safe, and use your time more productive. Let's make your time more productive and learn the skills. Okay, that's from my side. Thank you very much, participant. It's really good to have you today, and it's being a first webinar. I really thank you all. Thanks a lot. Be safe and stay at home. Thanks a lot. Bye.